What's going on?
So today we have filed the complaint in Leonard's case against Monsanto and Bayer and the Bayer parent holding company for, he has non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which he developed because of his decades of use of Roundup in his job as a landscaper. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is a permanent cancer. It's not a cancer that you ever get over. He had very high exposure to Roundup through his work, which he can talk to you about. And the connection between Roundup exposure and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma has been known by Monsanto for decades. They have concealed that story. It has now been recognized by the international body that ranks pesticides in cancer. And it has recently been analyzed and confirmed by a University of Washington team of scientists and epidemiologists.
What has been confirmed? That
The
Roundup
connection-
causes?
Yes, the connection between Roundup and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma has been confirmed in a meta-analysis by a team at the University of Washington, published last week.
Leonard, can you tell us how often and for how long and how did you use Roundup? Give us your history.
So I went to college in, when was it? 1996, 97. I used to be a police officer, and when I left that work, I went back to school and studied horticulture. And when I got out of school on that, I opened up my own business in 1999 doing landscape construction and maintenance. And during that course of that time, I had employees, but I did a lot of the work myself as well because a lot of the stuff that needed to be done, I had the expertise in, but the employees did not. They could do a lot of the construction stuff, but they didn't have a lot of knowledge on taking care of plants and all that kind of stuff. So anytime we would be out using herbicides like that, I would do that work. And normally what I would do is, with a Roundup product, I would use either a concentrate that I would use in a 5-gallon backpack sprayer that you dilute with water, and then you spray that. And I put it in my contracts for my clients. I said, because we tried to be as organic as we possibly could. And I put it in that the only product I would use when I would speak to my clients to say is Roundup, because I was of the understanding that in UV light and sunlight it broke down in 72 hours and became inert and it was safe. So I would use this product, and again, the equipment I'm using, they leak a little bit, so I'd always have Roundup that would be a little bit flowing out the back, that you'd have a wet patch on your back. And also when you're spraying it, you get if there's a bit of a breeze or anything, the mist is going to throw that back on you. So we would use that. In my contracts, I said I didn't do it as an absolute coverage on plants, because even though I believed it to be safe, I didn't want to saturate everything. So we'd use it as a spot application. The only time we did a full coverage is if we were installing new lawns, and we would use it to kill the grass, and then when it died, we would till that in rather than removing the topsoil. So in that situation, you would use a lot of Roundup to kill off a lawn, depending on the size of the lawn. And so I did that for 18 years in my own company. And I stopped working in my own company last year, and then I hired on with Molbach's in Woodinville, because they were opening up a landscape division unit there, and they brought me in to start that up.
Leonard, any reason to believe that your work as a police officer, and if you could tell us how long you were a police officer, that there might have been some sort of exposure that also contributed to your cancer?
None that I could imagine. I was a police officer from 91 to 94, and I was over in eastern Washington in the city of Ephrata. And I started working there as a provisional officer at the time Chris was working in Microsoft. And we had decided what we were going to move, what we were not going to move. And because it was a provisional position, we decided not to move. So I got an apartment over there. And then it became a full-time job, but I was still commuting back and forth, and finally decided, but as far as exposure to any chemicals of any description, I wouldn't have had that.
When did you get diagnosed, and when did you make the connection that you believed it was Roundup?
I was diagnosed on the 5th of May, which believe it was a Saturday. And prior to that, last year, as I was mentioning, I had a severe indigestion, and so I'd eat food. As soon as I took a bite of food, I'd be doubled over with pain, and I used to eat Tums like candy. So I ended up going to the doctor, and they first diagnosed it as an ulcer, but that was a misdiagnosis, and within a few days they made the diagnosis that it was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and they called me and advised me of that. How the Roundup thing came along was through a friend of mine, and again, the Rough Grouse thing. So we are both members of a nonprofit called the Rough Grouse Society. It's a nationwide nonprofit, and I'm the president of the Washington State chapter, and Chris is the activities director. And our vice president is an attorney. And we were at a chapter meeting, and we were discussing, saying, hey, I got cancer, whatever. And he goes, what is it? What was it? And he was the one that brought up the possibility that it was from Roundup, based on my work history. And he had a friend of his, another attorney, that he wanted to put me in contact, which I did. Eventually, we kind of did phone tag for a while. And through that gentleman, I ended up here, and here we are right now.
How definitive is the connection between Roundup and Leonard's cancer?
The science keeps getting better. He doesn't have other risk factors. So non-Hodgkin's lymphoma has other causes, but this is, if you look at his work history, his exposure history, and the lack of other explanations, there's a very strong connection in his case. That's not universally true, but it's certainly true here.
Leonard, tell me about when you got your diagnosis and you realized it, in your opinion, was connected to Roundup.
Mm-hmm.
After believing the product was safe for so long,
Mm-hmm.
how did you feel knowing you've been wearing it on your back, breathing it, spraying it for all these years?
Well, I mean, I was more concerned with the fact that I had cancer rather than what the source was at the time, so I wasn't angry at the manufacturers of that. I thought, through conversations, I found out that they were aware of that, and they knew it, but they kept pushing the product and saying it was safe. I felt that, there should be some accountability for that kind of stuff. It shouldn't happen. But I mean, I didn't get angry or upset about it or whatever it is, what it is. You take it what it is and you move forward. I was more concerned with, okay, let's go through the treatment and get this taken care of and get it fixed, if at all possible.
Are you angry now?
Nope.
What about, is there no warning sign? What is it that you're looking for when it comes to this complaint? Obviously damages, you've got medical bills and everything else, but are you looking to get it eradicated off the shelves? Are you looking for a warning label? What are you looking for?
Well, I think an enormous number of Americans have Roundup in their garages today, even with the evidence of the connection. And one of our purposes in bringing this case is to alert people to the risk. It is not necessary to use Roundup to maintain a yard.
No.
And so if some people can be saved from exposure to this, then that's a good thing. And we're looking for compensation for Leonard and Krista, and hopefully changing practices.
Absolutely, yes. And she's right. You don't have to have it. There are other organic ways of gardening to do all of the things that I outlined can be done other ways. The thing with the Roundup, and again, this is under the belief that it's a safe product, that it is inert in 72 hours, is that it's fast. And when you're running a business, time is money, so you go, what's the fastest way? Can we dig this out, or can we spray it and kill it? And then in a couple of days it's inert and we can kill it in. And you do that. If I had known, well, no, that's not safe, I would never have gone near that stuff. So there's that to it.
Yeah, the University of Washington study that's just out last week talks about the persistence of this product and says that because it is so ubiquitous, it is so persistent, it is likely that most people are carrying some burden of this chemical in their systems, even when they're not using it in their job. So, One goal is to get that out of circulation.
With that being said, I don't know if this is a weird question to ask. Were there any coworkers or employees who contracted or have the same affliction here? Or are you the only one?
One of my employees, a gentleman who worked as a foreman for me, and I haven't been in contact with him for about 1.5 years now, but he had prostate cancer in that time frame. But I don't know if that would be any connection to that or not. I have no idea, but that's the only one that I would know of.
And also, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, were the proper protocols taken? Was a face mask? Was gloves when you were using this stuff, these chemicals? Did you handle your end on the proper protocols? I have to ask that.
Yes, we took all the care in the world we wouldn't necessarily wear a mask all the time, but we would wear safety glasses and gloves when we're mixing and whatnot.
But nothing when you're spraying it, you said the mist coming back in your face?
The mist would come back, and even if you've got those masks, those little paper, they're just going to get saturated, and you're just going to breathe it in anyway. They're not going to do anything for you.
We've seen other judgments, we've seen other lawsuits. The product is still on shelves. How hopeful are you that your case will have any impact?
So there's actually a big consolidated litigation in federal court in California, and this case will end up being transferred there and joining those other cases. So the litigation is relatively early in the process. We hope that this case and the other cases combined will have that effect of bringing this product, taking it off the market.
Why isn't this more, we're here, but why isn't this a bigger deal? I mean, this is Roundup. I have some in my garage.
There you go.
I just used it 2 weeks ago. So, why isn't this a bigger deal? Is Roundup covering this up? Is it ever covered up? I mean, what's going on? I don't understand.
Monsanto is denying that there's any problem with Roundup, despite the evidence to the contrary, including evidence that they used labs that concealed the evidence of an effect from Roundup. Until they lose a certain number of cases, I think they are going to continue to argue that the product is safe. This is a very important product for Monsanto's bottom line, and as long as they are making money on it, they are not going to admit that there's a problem.
Are there other products that contain the same chemical that are still on store shelves?
I think Roundup, and there's a wide variety of Roundup products, some dozens, have both glyphosate, which is the active ingredient, and some other ingredients which appear in combination with glyphosate to be more dangerous than glyphosate by itself. And those are the products that are at issue here.
Do you guys mind if I ask Christy a question? Is that cool with you guys?
Yeah.
Do you mind pointing the mics at Christy here? So, your husband Leonard is not angry. What about you?
Yeah, I'm angry. When we were first given the diagnosis, it just devastated us. And I would love to see large warning signs. I'd love to see it put out there that even weekend users need to be careful with this. This is not a safe product.
And he used it all these years thinking it was safe.
Yes.
What do you think about the fact that anybody who used it was told point blank by the company, this is safe, don't worry about it?
It's just deceiving people. And even in our own garden, Leonard wouldn't let me use anything but Roundup. And so I would only be the occasional weekend user. But it was just, we had to go through our own garage and get rid of it completely.
How concerned are you that you will be diagnosed with cancer?
Well, at this point, because I was only the weekend user, I will have myself checked. But my concern was for Leonard because he was the one that was diagnosed, and diagnosed very late. So it was a very aggressive cancer when we found it.
How are you feeling now?
Well, I feel pretty good. It's kind of weird because even when I was going through chemo and radiation and all that stuff, I felt pretty good. And I had that going for me, I guess. The only thing I had when I do chemo, I do it for about 6 hours at a time. And you just be so tired. I mean, at the end of the day, and you go to work and you're doing fine, and just boom, it hits you like a brick wall, and you are just worn out. And it was like that for months. Your energy just goes away.